Consider it this way. When you get to December 2025, do you want to be proud of
A,
sticking to numbers your January self set up, no matter what happened in the business, or
B,
adapting to fit circumstances as the year changed to be in a better spot than your January self thought was possible? If you're an entrepreneur at heart, we believe that you'd pick
B.
So why budget as if
A
is what you want? This is so weird.
But seriously, like, would you let's go back over that, like, so you don't get distracted. Would you rather set numbers now and be really proud in December that you stuck to them no matter what happens, or be able to adapt and change as the year changes to try to get into a better spot than maybe you thought your current self thought possible? And we believe if you're an entrepreneur at heart, you're hands down picking the latter. You're picking, I want to be able to adapt and change so I can get to a better place. You're a Captain Kirk, right? Not a Spock, like we've talked about in previous episodes. So why budget as if you are going to be so rigid about it? Let's conclude here with some, bringing it all together. The key to a working budget that helps increase profits isn't perfection. It's not about strictly adhering to preconceived expectations for your year. Business budgeting that actually works is about other P's: progress, patience, persistence. Yep. If you want more profit, you can't have perfection, but you can have progress, patience, and persistence. You can take this mindset that we're sharing here and use YNAB's 4 rules, use the Profit First system together for wherever you're starting at right now, whether in early stage, growth stage, exit planning, or everywhere in between. We know this system works. Brandon's going to recap the keys.
So the keys are: allocate the money you already have, not money you don't have. Adjust with no guilt or shame. Embrace non-monthly expenses. Move money to the hold account and to the vault.
Does that seem too simple? If you just did those 4 things, you're like, really, that's it? Good. The best things in life are simple. But they also have this depth to them that you can spend a lifetime getting to know. We've been using YNAB since 2014 and started some Profit First concepts somewhere around 2013, but it could have been 2015. I don't remember exactly. We for sure started using Bank on Yourself back in 2013. These truly are concepts, right? We're 10 plus years later now that we believe can carry us for the next 10 to 30 years. And the more we see about them, the more there is to see. And we believe that could be for you too. So don't discount this because it's simple. Believe it because it's simple.
And I think it's way past 30 years actually, but
Right. Yeah. So is 2025 your year to implement sound money practices for your business that work for you as the entrepreneur? Are you ready to work with your human nature rather than have to become a robotic accountant to control your cash flow? And make sure that you have a bookkeeper that's doing the heavy lifting before the meeting, and you're not spending any time during this semi-monthly meeting updating QuickBooks or Xero or whatever you might use, or even YNAB if you adopted that from our last episode. Make sure it's all ready to go. 30-minute check-in, move on.
I kind of think about this in close to like date night, right? So for us, I remember when we ran our first business, we were running like crazy, really, really busy, right? And we didn't have time for date nights. And so at one point we had a challenge, right? Because business was hard, life was hard, and we needed to schedule date night. Now it seems like it was pointless, right? Like, what are we doing? We're just like not talking about work, not doing any of this. But by putting that on the calendar, we were able to make sure that we put what was a priority first. For us, of course, is a marriage, but what you want to make sure of is like your finances should be a priority. So you want to make sure that you put that there as a priority, not just say it's a priority, but not really put it on the calendar.
Yeah. Great. The second objection we often hear is my business isn't big enough for all these meetings. Like what, like this seems pointless. The cool thing is that we're talking about systems that are scalable. And if you can put them in, get used to doing them, they become habitual while you're small, you'll grow into them. And you'll actually maybe even grow faster because you're actually doing these things. It's way easier to implement these types of meetings and checkpoints before you need them. Because as your business grows, if you don't have these in there, they're going to get crowded out by even more things, right? So the habits you build now will support your growth later. And they'll actually like support your growth now too, rather than saying, well, I'll do that when my business is big enough for it.
Yeah. I think, again, it's kind of like the gym. You start going to the gym and eventually you just add extra things, right? Extra routines, but you need to start going to the gym.
Yep. And then final objection is like, why involve all these people? I can just handle this myself, right? Why do I need a bookkeeper, a tax pro, a financial planner, then involve them in these meetings, right? Or even my business partners or key personnels. Maybe you're a solo entrepreneur listening to this. And even if you sit down and do this yourself, good. But if you can bring more people in and have those structured reviews and conversations with a team, like 3 minds are better than 1, right?
Yep.
And especially when you know that team are people that think about money 40 hours or more per week, right? Bookkeepers, they're always thinking about money. CPAs, tax pros, they're always keeping up to date with tax developments. Financial planners, right? Learning about all the laws and regulations. Those things constantly change, right? Congress is always updating this or that. So let your financial professionals keep you up to date on what's applicable to you so you can focus on growing your business and not get caught by, oh, I didn't know about, this or that. The fourth one is the unexpected opportunity challenge. This is when a golden opportunity appears, but requires immediate cash. The best opportunities often come without warning, and you're like, oh, this is a great opportunity. Where am I going to find the money for it? And this is where maintaining an opportunity fund separate from your emergency savings can become really handy. This is where having some of those pre-approved financing options ready might be good, or having a strong banking relationship before you need it, particularly with a local credit union. They're often the ones doing the investments in local businesses. And even better yet, stashing up your vaults where you can be your own source of financing without having to rely on others. Go back 2 episodes if you need a refresher of what that is.
Or all of our episodes. Most of them, I think we talk about, using the system, the banking yourself system often. And this is how we've been able to take advantage of some great opportunities and unfortunately deal with challenges too.
Yeah. And then my favorite thing, besides having the money available for this, is to have a quick decision framework for evaluating opportunities. Because when a golden opportunity comes your way, you have to decide really quickly whether it's truly golden or if it's fool's gold.
Yeah.
This is like pre-deciding what opportunities fit with you and what opportunities don't, so that you don't rush ahead too quickly. You just have to get the framework out and use it, right? Oh, I got a golden opportunity potential. I'm going to get out my framework. I'm going to see how it does with my framework before deciding to move forward. Now, don't go be like one of those characters from a movie that is trying to find their soulmate and they have a list of 100 qualities no other human being could ever reach, right? The best frameworks in this decision-making framework have about 10 or less criteria. And when you come up with a golden opportunity, you want them to match a minimum of, say, 50% or more for that criteria, for that to satisfy whether you move forward or not. Do not make a Prince Charming list and expect every opportunity to match 100% in order to move forward. Because then you probably won't have any opportunities, just like that person that has that list stays single for their lives, right? But once they get more clarity on what is really true, what's really effective, then you can make sure you've got the money set aside for it, or the financing available, or whatever it might be. And then you've got the framework. And like they say, those who have the money, opportunities find them.
And on the flip side, I do want to make sure there is a lot of fool's gold out there, a lot more. And so making sure, trusting, but verifying, doing the due diligence having that list again is helpful. You can't have it like so long, but making sure you're not going to get in some kind of Bernie Madoff situation or some other crazy thing, because there's a lot out there. So talking to somebody like us or other people that trust to vet the idea, because sometimes we go in there with those rose-colored glasses saying, oh, this is going to be great. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, isn't this just setting myself up for disappointment? Or what's the point of setting an outrageous goal I probably won't hit? And again, I talk to business owners all the time, and they just keep doing the thing, but they don't actually set goals.
Yeah, so let's address some of these common concerns. One, multiple goals seems overwhelming. I can let alone, one goal, why three? Well, this MTO framework actually reduces pressure. You hit your minimum, it's a win, right? Everything above that is bonus territory. You're not failing if you don't hit that outrageous goal. We used to set only the outrageous goal, then we get mad at ourselves if we didn't hit it. And then we started, okay, let's reduce and maybe just have a target. But then we lose some of that growth mindset of going after the outrageous, and we'd also beat ourselves up if we didn't hit the target, because it was, it still was a stretch, and it doesn't mean we're going to get it. But having this minimum actually helps us with that mindset that we keep. It's a win if we hit the minimum, right? We're not losers. We hit our minimum, we're winning, and we're even better at winning, right? We get the cherry on top if we're going toward the target or to the outrageous. But we still get the cake, and we get to have the cake and icing. If we hit the minimum, we get the cherry on top, or whatever analogy you want to use, if we're going after target or outrageous. So it's not overwhelming. It's actually good, positive growth mindset. Yeah, without like beating yourself up.
And I would say, as we've worked back and forth, and going back to the previous meetings or podcasts that we did, having those conversations of saying, man, this seems a bit high for me. It's helped me to at least look at the M and feel okay and not deflated because we didn't reach 100,000 in a month or something like that. Not that we do, but it is helpful to feel not a failure if we only did half of that.
Right. The next common objection is preferring to focus on one clear target. Now, we're big fans of focus, right? One course until success, follow it, good thing. But single targets can be demotivating if you fall behind. MTO instead provides multiple reference points. It's like you've got your eyes on the outrageous, but you can have a reference of here's the minimum and the target along the way. And this helps maintain motivation across the different business cycles, keeps you growing even if you don't hit every single mark. So you still have the clear target. Maybe that's your target, right? That's your clear target. But minimum helps you see, okay, here's how I'm progressing toward it. And outrageous is to help keep you seeing beyond the target. Anything to add there?
I think, again, some of it is as we're going for winning the game or whatever that is, to be able to see where we need to make some extra work, extra groundwork or other things, to be able to see and to be able to say, all right, I want to be growing. I want to have a business that is 10x in 10 years. How do we do that? And so again, sometimes it's just us doing our part, but also allowing for the unexplainable to happen.
Now, you might be thinking, but what if I can't wait 3 months? My business is bursting at the seams. And you're right. Sometimes the cost of waiting is higher than the cost of imperfect timing. I recently worked with a client, we'll call them Sarah, who runs a successful graphic design business, let's say. Sarah was drowning in work, turning away clients because they couldn't handle it, right? Yep. And Sarah didn't have her full financial system in place. And so together we ran the numbers and realized she was losing more money by not hiring than she would risk by hiring before her systems were perfect. So we looked through it and she moved forward with hiring. It was a really great decision because now she actually has some of that time freed up. They're not turning away clients, and she can instead spend some time setting up those systems that she could have never set up because her schedule was just too full.
I think that's, again, as a business owner, having that thinking time or having the guides there to help you make that decision. And sometimes we're too busy running around. We feel like we don't have the time, but by stopping, having that thinking time, having that time probably with you, allowed her to move in the right direction.
Yeah. So the key here is to understand the difference between essential preparation and optional optimization. In our very humble opinions, we think that essential is really only a couple things. 3 things, actually. But three is a great number. A clear understanding of your cash flow. Even if you don't have Profit First fully implemented, you know, like, here's about how much it comes in, right? Here's how much it comes out. You've got a basic understanding. 2, at least 1 month of payroll in reserve. If you're turning away clients like Sarah was, you should have enough in the bank, right?
Yep.
Or in a vault where you know you could cover payroll for a month in case all those clients and potential clients just disappear. And then you need a basic payroll system, right? You need a way to pay them to collect their identity information to make sure they're eligible to work for you, you know, anything like that. Anything else, right? Everything else other than those 3 things, clear understanding of cash flow, at least 1 month of payroll, and a basic payroll system, everything else can be optimized as you go.
Can I add something that I was thinking about here is, you know, there's that Rocket Fuel book by Gino Wickman. And that having that visionary and the integrator, some of those things, maybe your first person that you hire is maybe an integrator. They might help you develop those systems. So you might not, that might be like, oh, I'm overwhelmed by it. But that's an important thing to make sure that as you build your business, an integrator role or something that helps to take that minutia off.
Yeah. So you can imagine Sarah in our example might sit down and say, do I want to be doing more graphic design or continue what I'm doing and hire an integrator? Or do I want to shift from doing so much graphic design to do some of that integration myself? Is that in my skill set? Is that what I really want to be doing? And I need to hire a bunch of graphic designers to take on more of this. Yeah. Great.
I think that's an important thing.
Okay. And then there's one more alternative we'd be remiss not to mention. If you simply can't wait and you need someone before you've got all those foundations set, you don't have to hire an employee. You could hire a VA, a 1099 from a third party or directly. We did this with administrative help before we went on with hiring full-time W-2 admin help. It was tremendously helpful. One tip here, if you're going to go that route, is have that 1099 admin help write down those processes that they're learning, that you're teaching them, create some of those standard operating procedures, SOPs, insights to make training that W-2 admin even easier when you get to that point. Very legitimate, often used path to take, and one that we found really helpful.
Yeah, and if you want other resources for VAs, we have several that reach out to us, and we can point you in a few places that have helped us, and that, you know, we could share our groups that we're a part of.
Yeah. Okay, so the path to hiring isn't always linear. While having Profit First set up, testing your payroll capacity through your vault, those are ideal. The most important thing is ensuring you can sustainably cover payroll and basic benefits and still pay yourself and still have profit, right?
Not just pay yourself a little bit, but pay yourself, like for real.
Yeah. Start with the essentials, test what you can, and be prepared to learn and adjust as you go. No one does this perfectly. Embrace the imperfection, embrace the mess, but also keep your future bigger than your past.
Yep.
Okay, now we get to the extra special part. You ready for this? If you've zoned out, come back here. One of our favorite approaches is what we call the Profit First Participation Plan. And here's how it works. You set aside a small percentage of your quarterly profit distribution. You're doing those right if you're Profit First.
Yeah, you should be. And if you don't know about Profit First, reach out to us because we'll help you understand it.
Then creating clear criteria for how it's shared. Could be equal splits, could be based on tenure or role, right? You got to create that clear criteria. Say that 10 times fast. Create the clear criteria. And then make it a teaching opportunity about business and personal finances. So for example, these bonuses, could fund a bank on yourself type policy with a cash value that the staff can use while they're, still employed with you, and, buy that next car, pay off that debt, whatever it might be. And the money still grows to create funds that supplement their retirement. They can refill that money on their own schedule. How different and more awesome of a profit sharing plan is that versus 401k that they can't touch, and or have lots of fees and different things.
And we help build those for business owners and clients all the time.
Yeah. And then as your profitability grows, you can just continue to share those rewards and continue to expand the profit first participation plan.
There you go. That's just one. I mean, there's so many kinds of plans you can build, and ways to make sure that the culture is not just talked about, but it's actually implemented through strategies and tools.
Yeah. You can make sure that the types of profit sharing that you do match your culture rather than distract from your culture.
Yeah.
And this is where we would go into lots of technical jargon. So we're going to wrap up now instead, and hope that you'll reach out to us to learn more. Actually, we've got a way for you to do that. But first, let's recap. So remember, culture isn't built overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It's a result of consistent actions that align with your values. So start with getting profitable, then focus on sharing that prosperity in ways that make sense for your team and your business, and continue to go in that consistent direction.
I kind of think about that like a gym. You got to actually show up to the gym, right? And that's the profitability part of a business. Yeah. And then you're consistent, and then you add on the little things. Yeah.
And then a profitable business with a strong culture actually becomes self-reinforcing. Kind of like you work out at the gym, your muscles become stronger. It's easier to work out the next time, and right? But in this case, you've got happy employees. They provide better service. Better service leads to more satisfied customers. We wrote in our very first business plan, how we treat our team is how our team will treat our customers. Like if you want a better customer experience, you got to have a better team experience. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great, but I'm running a small business. I can't compete with corporate benefit packages.
We know that. We can feel that sometimes.
And here's where creativity comes in. What we want to share with you today is what's called the Section 162 bonus plan, sometimes just easily called an executive bonus plan, but don't let that executive word scare you away, despite that fancy name. It's actually quite simple and quite accessible for small businesses. We got a few points here. It's a way that you can provide additional benefits to key employees using life insurance.
You can use life insurance?
You can use life insurance, yeah. Oh. So the business pays the premium and gets a tax deduction. Yay for the business. The employee owns the policy and can access its value. Yes, we're using a cash value type of life insurance, and the employee can access that value to become their own banker.
Yep.
The employee has the option to contribute additional premiums themselves if they want. The cash value can be accessed tax-free through policy loans, all the awesome things about becoming your own banker and banking on yourself that they're able to do. It can be designed to encourage long-term retention with vesting schedules, just like 401ks have vesting schedules. These can too. There's minimal administrative burden compared to those other traditional benefits like 401ks. Not a lot of paperwork, not a lot of fees. So great that way.
Yeah, if you're a business owner and you've been down that road, you know how crazy that is sometimes.
Yeah. It can also be customized for different employees based on their role and tenure. So let's say you only want to have this bonus plan for people who have reached a certain level or a certain salary pay or something like that. You can customize it. And it's my favorite thing is you're giving a long-term financial planning tool to this employee that helps with their financial literacy, helps them, get through the things that come up in their lives. They've got, emergency funds they can tap into, all those kind of things. And it's also a long-term benefit for the company as well. Now, there are a lot of creative ways to structure these bonus plans, these Section 162 bonus plans. You can tie the benefit to company performance. You can create a graduated scale based on years of service. You can add a vesting schedule of those company contributions, and you can just include it as part of an overall financial wellness program that lots of small businesses are able to offer that the big businesses wouldn't even take their time to offer.
Yep.
Anything else you'd share about the Section 162?
I mean, again, I think a lot of times in our financial world, we tend to ignore it or wait, or we just listen to everybody should do a 401k because that's what is told, right? And so as a business owner, thinking outside the box, just like we do all the time, is think outside the box for the benefits for your employees. What are things that you can do that will help them and their families, right? And so that's something also, the reason I love this is we're not just locking it up till they're 59 and a half. They might be able to use it for an emergency. Most of your staff, maybe sometimes they're not budgeting and they don't have that $400 emergency fund, but this is going to allow them to overcome the hurdle so they can do work for you more because they don't have to worry about the stress of the blown tire or whatever it is. Now you might be thinking, isn't key person insurance just another expense I can't afford right now? Let's break down why this thinking could be costly to you, the business owner.
Yeah. So first, let's understand how key person insurance works. One, it's life and or disability insurance policy owned by your business. The business pays the premium, which is often tax deductible. And if something happens to that key person, the business receives the benefit. And then those funds can be used for covering lost revenue, hiring temporary help, recruiting and retraining replacements, managing debt obligations, providing stability during the transition, all those kinds of things. But here's where it gets interesting. Key person insurance can be structured to do way more than just protect your business. It becomes a powerful retention tool. You can have split dollar arrangements where the business and the key employee share the benefits. This creates those golden handcuffs that we mentioned that encourage loyalty for them to stay with you and provides retirement benefits for that key employee later. Let's say they stick with you for a long time, they can actually turn this into a retirement benefit. Another idea is executive bonus plans, like we talked about in our last episode, where the business pays that premium as additional compensation. The employee owns the policy, still tax deductible for the business, but has lots of benefits that the employee can be using throughout the rest of their lives. And then finally, you can use this for buy-sell funding. Let's say you have a key person who you believe one day could buy the business from you. What a powerful way to ensure smooth ownership transition. Protects both the business and the key person's family and creates this clear exit strategy, often giving that employee the funds they need to buy the business from you and your family.
I think those are key things that help us as business owners to be thinking long range, be able to figure out, because again, I talk to business owners all the time that their plan is to eventually, when they retire, they're just going to sell the business. And they haven't thought about any of the other pieces that could go alongside that. Mm-hmm. I had one that's, I think, 70 and literally doesn't have an exit strategy or any of those things in place because he never thought about it for 30 years. He's in growth mode for 30 years or more. And so by thinking and spending that time developing the people, having the tools in place that then help you go out whenever it's time, if that's the case.
Yeah. So remember Marcus from our opening story, after Sarah's health scare, he implemented this key person protection for all of his senior staff. He structured it as a split dollar arrangement where the business got protection against an unexpected loss. Each key person got valuable life insurance coverage. The policies built a cash value that could be accessed for emergencies. The arrangement created a retirement benefit that encouraged retention, and so on and so forth. So let's talk about why having multiple tax treatments gives you more flexibility later on in life, in quote unquote retirement or financial freedom. Most people believe their income in retirement is going to be lower, but considering the following, for you, our small business owner, the tax deductions you might lose, all those business expenses that you currently deduct, or the children who are your favorite tax deductions, you might not have those in 30 years, particularly, right? Like you might have to pay your own cell phone bill, and that's a personal expense at that point, right? All those kind of things.
Well, and then also, again, if we're in retirement, as we are aging, one of us, if we're married, is going to maybe retire to heaven, and then that increases taxes too, because you're now single.
Yeah, single tax brackets are way higher than married tax brackets. Absolutely. Also consider the retirement lifestyle you want. Do you want to have a lower income in retirement, or do you want a much higher one and continue to have that growth mindset?
Yep.
Especially with inflation. And then also remember, there can be changes to the tax law, and you might lose some benefits like the QBID that we discussed earlier.
As we have learned a lot, that taxes can be changed and things can be different in the future. And so we want to plan now, but also be prepared for the future, but also know, again, who knows what's going to happen. And again, the tax code is bigger than the Bible. It wasn't always that way. There's always been added and changed over time.
Yeah. So if you have these 3 different buckets, those different tax treatments let you control more what your taxable income is going to be, no matter how Congress changes the tax code. If tax rates go up, you can pull more from tax-free accounts. If they go down, you can use your pre-tax money. If there's a high standard deduction, you can take that from your pre-tax money, all kinds of fun things like that. Having money in these different buckets also can help you manage things like required minimum distributions, have more flexibility with your Social Security benefits, your Medicare premiums, if those things exist at that point. And you can just better control your tax bracket by choosing which bucket you pull from each year. So having options gives you more control over the tax impact on your heirs. And we're going to talk more about this also in a future episode this month. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that.
I mean, I do want to say, I was just literally talking to a friend of mine just now about his dad, who is in the 70s, and saying, oh, wait, I made a lot of money. I'm doing good. Now I need to start thinking about this whole RMD thing, taxes, and planning on that. And he's like, I did not realize all of these things. I did so good of work, and his son is going to inherit a blessing, maybe even a mess. And so thinking about this before you're 72 is really important. When you're 40, when you're 20, start thinking and building those foundations now.
And if you're like, no, I don't want to do that. That sounds too complicated and expensive, and I've got more important things to do. Stay tuned after the break. Now let's talk about some deductions that got Tony in trouble, often because people claim them but shouldn't.
Yeah. Again, we see these often.
Yeah.
There's the home office myth. How many times have we watched videos on this? Right. I mean, I see it a lot. So there's the home office myth. Tell us about that, Amanda.
The big thing is you need a space that's used exclusively for business. This means no guest bed in the corner, no personal desk items, no kids doing their homework after hours. This is one of Tony's biggest mistakes, mixing business and personal use. Now, that being said, if an IRS agent does show up at your house looking to inspect your home office, I hope you'll do what my tax pro told me to do. Unless they have a search warrant, which IRS agents don't really get search warrants, you can say no. Give them your tax pro's contact information, and that's it. Don't say anything more. Don't offer them a cup of tea on your living room and tell them your life story. Just say no and give them your tax pro's professionals. This is why tax professionals are worth some of their cost. With the right credentials, they are able to represent you in front of the IRS, so that you only need to talk to the IRS agent with your tax pro present and only as needed. So follow all the rules for the home office myth. Don't fall into the home office myth. Follow the rules exclusively for business, nothing else there. But also don't let an IRS agent inspect it unless they've got a warrant and your tax pro's present and all those things. And
watch Young Sheldon. I think he had some episodes on being audited himself, right?
Oh, that was a great episode from Young Sheldon. The second one that got Tony into trouble is the business clothing trap. You can't have the business pay for your clothes unless it's a required uniform or protective gear. Looking professional isn't enough.
I can't do that with these?
No. Even if you only wear it for work, it doesn't count. If you could wear it elsewhere, it's probably not deductible. Just like you can't put a logo on your car and then deduct every single car expense, you can't simply put a logo on a polo to get a tax deduction. So for Tony, those wedding only outfits, not deductible, as Tony discovered.
Yeah, that's again one of those things that I've seen. And then there's the business meal mistake. I mean, this is again another one that they're like, I'm gonna just put it on the account and deduct it. Eating alone at your desk isn't a business meal. I know you're thinking, why is he saying that? Because people have done it. Eating alone at your desk isn't a business meal.
Working through lunch doesn't make it deductible. You need documented business purpose and who you met with, which must include some kind of business discussion, not just networking. Now, I looked into some of the really nerdy case law and case notes about people getting in trouble with the Internal Revenue Service specifically for this meal mistake. And the IRS has this business expense substantiation requirement, which is a fancy way of saying you need documentation of the meeting purpose at the time of the meeting and what was discussed, who was there, all the things. Doesn't mean you need formal meeting minutes, but you know how people keep like a journal in their car to write down their mileage and different car expenses, put their receipts in there, or they have an app that tracks it. You could have something like that for your meetings too. When you have a meeting, you keep a meeting log. What was the purpose of the meeting? What was discussed there? Who was there? That's a great idea to make sure any business meals have this business expense substantiation tied to them. Tony learned that editing photos while eating doesn't make your lunch deductible. Now, you might be thinking, but everybody else is doing these things. Break. Step 1. Open your banking app to see what's there. Log into your account, open the app on your phone. Most business owners are already doing this daily, if not more than once a day.
Just do it in the morning, once.
Well, yeah, that preferably. Step 1, open your bank account, see what's there. Step 2, look for any transactions that need documentation. For instance, you might take a photo of any paper receipts and store them in a receipt folder in your cloud, or, a folder in your phone, in your photo app, right? Receipts all go there. You might send a note to your bookkeeper or log into your accounting software to add information about any weird transactions while they're fresh on your mind. Like we talked about in the last episode, you might record your business meeting you paid for the meal. You'd record the meeting related information, like who you met with, what was discussed, that sort of thing. So Step 1 is open the account. Step 2, look for any transactions that need documentation, do the documenting. And Step 3, there is no Step 3. That's it. 5 minutes, 15 minutes tops if you had a lot the day before, or maybe on Monday to, track everything from the weekend that, all hits your account on Monday, things like that.
I mean, I think that's the similar kind of concept in tracking meetings or doing the dailies, right? So we want to do those daily habits. And the more we do that, then we can go back and not go back a month later and say,
what was that again?
Who was that that I met? I forgot that, all the things, my memory is very bad, as she knows. So remembering 4 days ago is hard enough. So doing that 5 minutes really helps.
Yeah. So set a daily reminder when you're most likely to do this. For many, they just make it part of their routine, like their morning routine. Maybe think, when are you logging into your account already? And how could you make sure you got a little bit of extra time to make this documentation, take photos of receipts, write down who the meeting was with and what the business purpose was, things like that.
Now, notice we did not say go back and catch up on the days, weeks, months, or even years when you didn't do this. Sure, you could do that, but I mean, literally, you need to schedule a lot more time, not 15 minutes, to catch up. Start the daily 5-minute thing now, and then you're going to be in a better position. And,
Yeah, and don't let any kind of guilt or shame about not doing it previously get in your way. Now let's talk about some tools to make this super easy. There's some basic tools everybody needs, like a separate bank account for your business. Easy, non-negotiable. 2, maybe some kind of receipt scanning app on your phone or a folder in your photo app. I know QuickBooks and other softwares have like an app you can have on your phone to take photos of receipts.
The Notes app even has a scanner option.
That's true, yeah. Some kind of simple bookkeeping system like QuickBooks or Xero, maybe even a spreadsheet. And then set times to check in on your money, which If you are like, I got this daily 5-minute check-in going, go back to the episode that we released January 15th of 2025 called Financial Systems for Seven-Figure Business Growth, that builds on the twice monthly, the quarterly, and the annual things that you can use to build on top of the 5-minute daily check-in.
Yeah, those little things then add up to the big things. It's the little rocks and big rocks idea, right?
Yep. And then there's some nice to have tools. I love having a central space where all the bank and credit card feeds come into automatically. So let's talk about 3 key areas of long-term planning that most business owners miss. And we're going to talk first about planning for a business sale and the taxes there. The second we're going to talk about is planning for passing on your business to your children or other beneficiaries. And then the third one is planning for when you get to quote unquote retire from your business, but still own it. One quick reminder first. I'm not a tax professional. This episode is meant to empower you with knowledge to bring to your tax professionals, not giving anybody individual advice. We're just sharing some great information that we think will help you have better conversations and make better decisions as you collaborate and work with your tax pro, which you've got a collaborative tax pro, right? Okay, good. So first, let's dive into planning for a business sale and the taxes there. First, you want to understand how the sale will be taxed. Are you setting up for an asset sale or a stock sale? Each asset category in an asset sale has different tax treatments. And an asset sale is when a buyer purchases individual business assets. So if they're purchasing your equipment and inventory, that might be taxed as ordinary income. If they're buying a building, then you might have a 25% rate on depreciation recapture. If they're buying goodwill and other intangibles like copyrights, then you might get capital gains rates in terms of the taxations there. And usually buyers prefer to do an asset sale for better tax treatments for themselves, long term. But it can result in higher taxes for sellers due to that, especially that depreciation recapture. If you're doing a stock sell, this is where the buyer purchases the actual business entity. This is usually better for sellers because you get one tax rate on the entire sale, but it's harder to get buyers to agree to, partially because there's some liability they take on for past business practices that they have no control over what happened in the past. This is also more important for corporations than LLCs. So part of this with the asset sale versus the entity sale is that buyers and sellers are just going to have competing interests. And your taxation might be one of your interests. And of course, the buyer's eventual taxation, if they resell it, is going to be one of their big interests that they're looking out for. So there's some structures that spread taxes over multiple tax years. So you could do an installment sale that lets you pay your taxes as you receive payments. You can do earnouts that spread your income over several years. You might even set up an employee stock ownership plan, an ESOP, that can defer to the taxes until you want or need to use the funds. So even as you get into the buyer's part, right, you can have some tax advantages that you have more control over, and maybe they're open to an installment sale, an earnout, or an ESOP. So before you even get, though, to the negotiating table, there's some steps you can take before the sale.
Yeah, this doesn't mean, though, that you work during family time.
Yeah.
Not what he means by winning in all areas. But this also reminds me of Lisa, who we introduced at the very beginning. Let me tell you a little bit more about her story, which is what we're going to focus on today. She runs a digital marketing agency, and at one point she got to the place where she was completely burned out. During one of our conversations, her phone rang 4 times. All client emergencies, which if you're listening to the podcast version of this, that there was totally air quotes around emergencies. When I asked about her profit margins, she laughed and said, "What profit?" Despite working 70 plus hours weekly with a team of 3, she was paying herself less than her employees until she reached a breaking point. And that's what brought her to me, that she got to this breaking point. It was missing her daughter's birthday party in order to go to a client crisis, right? And go handle that, be, superwoman for that client while missing out on her daughter's birthday party. Only to have the very next day, the client haggle over the invoice.
And I would say a lot of times this happens. I mean, again, this is her story, but you can put yourself in this situation. We put ourselves in that situation with our coffee shop. Lisa's story is one we've seen countless times, but what makes her journey remarkable is how quickly things turned around once she implemented 3 key changes.
Yeah. So first, Lisa met Robert, a business owner in our network who had implemented Profit First 2 years earlier. Robert shared how he had gone from constant cash flow stress to making regular profit distributions by simply changing how money flowed through his business. The concept was simple. Whenever money came in, immediately he'd set aside percentages for profit, owner's pay, and taxes before looking at operating expenses.
Now, Lisa was skeptical, but she was desperate. And sometimes when you're desperate, that's when you actually change. So she started small, just taking 1% for profit and 5% for her personal pay from every deposit. Within 3 months, something remarkable happened. Not only did she manage to run the business on less, but seeing actual profits accumulated, even small amounts, shifted her mindset about what her time was worth. And that is the biggest change. It wasn't in her checkbook and all that, it was in her head.
Yeah, and the value of her time. Pin in that, we're going to come back to it. But this new confidence then led to her second breakthrough. Through another business owner in our community, Lisa learned about Bank on Yourself, a strategy using properly structured whole life insurance to create a personal banking system. What appealed to Lisa wasn't just the guaranteed growth and tax advantages under current law and with all the right, companies and all those fabulous things. The thing that appealed to her most was the emotional security of building assets that no one could take away. Not clients, not market downturns. This felt very safe to her. She was ready to move forward.
She had started a modest policy directing a portion of her newly consistent personal pay into it each month. Having the growing financial foundation gave her something she'd been missing for years, the power to say no, not yes.
Right? What's your business's most valuable resource? You, the business owner, right? Boundary setting is about making sure you can be your best self within your business.
I think that, again, we often forget about this when it comes to what we do with the Profit First system, when it comes to the Banking Yourself and infinite banking system, is I want to think about you first, right? And that's important. You're your greatest asset. That's why we insure the greatest asset, right? And so the time, you need to respect your own time and values as well.
Okay, so let's wrap up here. The data is clear. Businesses with strong boundaries outlast and outperform those without them, right? You think of some of the best businesses that you admire, particularly small businesses that are growing and doing well. They're focused, they have strong boundaries. And they are more profitable because they charge appropriately, don't give away free work, and all those kind of things. They're more innovative because their owners have the mental space for strategic thinking, and they're more sustainable because they don't burn through their human capital, the energy and creativity of their founders and their team members. I've been reading recently Simplified by Richard Koch. He talked about when they're looking at a business that they want to invest in or see if it's doing well, they want to see space, time, a little bit of water cooler chat, things like that. There's energy and creativity in those kind of firms when everybody's rush, hurry, do, that's not a sign of a healthy, thriving business.
Yeah, and that was Ray Dalio.
Ray Dalio, thank you.
Yeah. And then we have financial boundaries. In particular, those can be strengthened through systematic approaches like Profit First or the Bank Yourself systems. These systems create automatic guardrails that protect business owners from the financial depletion that often leads to closure, or sometimes it's even protecting themselves, right? A business owner who implements Profit First, for instance, ensures they're paying themselves and setting aside profits from day one, creating immediate financial boundaries that grow stronger over time. And again, we've been implementing this for years, and it is so powerful to have that. If you'd like to learn more about Profit First or banking yourself, reach out to us, and we'd love to help people learn more about this without any obligations, no strings attached. Just show up to the meeting. If you're gonna schedule, show up to the meeting, do the time thing. But we would love to serve and help you share our story of how it's implemented and worked for us.
So remember, in final wrap up here, implementing boundaries doesn't happen overnight. It requires deliberate decisions about what you will do and won't do in your business. It means sometimes saying no to opportunities that don't align with your values or your business model. And it requires clear communication with clients and team members about your expectation. Every successful long-term business has boundaries. They're not an obstacle to growth.
Mm-hmm.
They're the framework that makes growth possible without collapse. Now, here's the thing before we move on. If you never delegate, if you don't figure out how to free up your time, you stay in the professional box until you're forced to retire, and you often end up back in the unemployed box, right? Because you haven't figured out how to increase the time available, and you haven't figured out how to make, save money, have money available for when you do have that time freedom. So if you're in that professional box and you look toward, if you want to like put a dot there and pretend like you're moving to financial freedom.
Yeah.
What's the thing that changes? It's not the money that changes, although, yeah, let's try to get you more money, right? Let's have that be at an angle, not just flat across. But the thing that's changing the most is what? Time,
Yep.
right? You're freeing up your time. This is why we delegate, right? The most powerful insight comes when we realize delegation isn't about finding people who work exactly like you do. It's not about finding people to excel at things that you don't. It's about creating a stronger business, and it's about freeing up your work to do more life,
Yep.
to have financial freedom. And the thing that most people that keeps them from doing this is our identities. We identify by all the things we're doing. If we have nothing to do, right? If we're getting to, I've delegated all the things that took a lot of time and brought in a lot of money, whatever that is in your business, you feel like, what do I do next? Right? That's the thing that I built this business on. All the things I sold, all the products I made, all the services I rendered. If I delegate all those things to do my unique ability and my leadership, who am I anymore? That's when you're a business owner, right? That's when you get to lean into strategic vision, relationship building, the ability to see opportunities that others miss. These are the true areas where you become irreplaceable.
I think that's also, as we go through some of this, seeing like the professional, sometimes we go back down to the student level because we're like, oh, but I want financial freedom. So I'm going to go back to school. And then we never get out of that because we eventually become the professional. And oftentimes most people don't actually have financial freedom. And again, having more time and more money to do what we want when we want.
Yeah, and don't miss that the difference between the professional and the financial freedom often isn't money, it's time.
Mm-hmm. And a final reminder, while you should delegate many things, and I'm going to say this again, never delegate understanding your business finances and your profitability. I know I said that before, but it needs to be said and again. Don't delegate understanding your business finances and your profitability, because that's what brings that financial freedom, right? So you need to have clarity of your numbers to make sound strategic decisions. And this doesn't mean doing all the bookkeeping yourself. Again, I said that before. It doesn't mean regular reviewing financial reports and maintaining ultimate responsibility for financial decisions. It does mean, but it does mean regularly reviewing financial reports and maintaining ultimate responsibility for your financial decisions.
What if instead of trying to find a balance with work and life as competing priorities, we integrated them as complementary parts of a fulfilling existence?
That sounds awesome.
Amazing.
Work-life integration doesn't mean being available for work 24/7. Like, I think that's not very good. Rather, it's about designing your business and personal life so they support rather than sabotage each other.
Yeah, this approach recognizes three fundamental truths about entrepreneurship and business ownership. First, passion for your work is a feature, not a bug. Be passionate. That's great. Many entrepreneurs, business owners, we generally love what we do. And artificially separating it from our life creates this unnecessary guilt and conflict. You don't need that.
I think about this a lot whenever we ask, what does retirement mean for you? And if you're a business owner, oftentimes you're like, I'm going to work till I'm dead. Like
because we love it so much, not because we're poor, right?
Yeah, because we just want to. And I think that that's okay, right? You don't have to stop working because the man told you to, even though you're maybe the man or woman. Anyway.
Yeah, the other thing is that we have to break down that is true for business owners, not maybe true for everybody else, is your business demands different amounts of attention at different times. Some seasons require an intense focus, while others allow more space for personal pursuits. Integration embraces this natural rhythm instead of forcing a rigid balance every day or every week.
Yeah, I think also it's just not just seasons in the year, but seasons of the business. The first 3 years of a business are a challenge. You're building the systems, you're building all kinds of stuff. So it might be a little more focus, but as we are building and looking at other people, don't compare yourself to a business that's 30 years old and you're only 5 and you're saying, why am I not there? Well, because they're 30 years old and you're 5.
Right. Now, this third one, I have to go back and tell you, the first time I heard the words work-life balance were probably 2006, 2007, and it was really great. I was an employee at a nonprofit, amazing. But times have changed, and we're in a much different digital world than we were then. And, having your brand and having that be on the internet, on your personal social media, right, especially as a business owner, that kind of naturally blurs the lines between work time and personal time. And fighting this reality just causes more stress, where if you thoughtfully manage it, it can create a lot of freedom.
Yeah, someone told me as well, like this idea of I want to make money while I'm sleeping, right? And that maybe with the digital world is you can, right? But at the same time, you don't want to be sleeping, having to deal with things.
So now we get to the question, how? How do we create this integration in very practical terms? And what we've identified are 5 core practices that successful business owners use to achieve meaningful work-life integration. So we're going to cover these 5. Their purpose, identity, energy, technology, and money. Yeah. So another story. I remember sitting across from Rachel, a talented consultant who had built a $500,000 practice. When I suggested she needed some of these mindset shifts, she just laughed at me. She was like, that sounds great in theory, but you don't understand my situation. I'm working 60 hours a week just to keep up with my client demands. I don't have the luxury of stepping back to think about mindset. 6 months later, Rachel called me. Her voice is a little different. This time, more tired. I'm in the same place, she admitted. Still working 60 hours a week, still making roughly the same revenue. Nothing has changed. That's when I told her something and it finally clicked. I said, the hamster wheel is never going to get you to the next level unless you step off of it and change your approach. I mean, you can kind of picture this in your head right now. Picture a hamster on a wheel. He's in the cage. There's 2 levels to the cage. The wheel's on the bottom.
Just keep going.
The wheel's on the bottom of the cage. And the hamster is just continuing to go, go, go. How does the hamster get to the second level of the cage? They get off the hamster wheel. They look around. They find the ladder or the stairs or whatever it is that's there. They have to change their approach. So Rachel started small. She blocked off just 2 hours every Monday morning for strategic thinking. Those 2 hours, she was off the hamster wheel looking for the different approach, right? She opened a separate profit account, started transferring just 2% of that revenue into it. She identified one small client project she could delegate to her most trusted associate. And she just kept going 2 hours every Monday morning, finding small shifts to make. And a year later, Rachel's business had grown to 750,000, but more importantly, she was only working 40 hours a week instead of 60, and her profit margin had doubled.
So remember that every successful business owner once stood where you are now. The difference is they realized they couldn't scale their business until they scaled their thinking first. You have to scale your thinking first before you can scale all the other things.
So this is the same thing that happened to us in our business. We're talking from experience here. We were a couple of years in, we were starting to get burned out, and we started just taking one evening off every week. No phones, no email, just us, some food, maybe a card game, a movie. The number one rule was no talking about business.
It's really hard to do because, business was everything for us.
Yeah. Then we started adding a morning of strategic thinking, where I would have a morning, Brandon would have a different morning, where we just have some time to do some thinking about whatever problem we were trying to solve and come up with, the alternate approach to make it happen. A short time later, we adopted Bank on Yourself and started building an asset separate from the business. I think if we hadn't done those first two things, the one night off and the 2 hours of strategic thinking, we wouldn't have been ready to hear about Bank on Yourself.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of funny how that worked. And then we adopted Profit First and started taking our personal pay seriously. Hearing about Profit First after Bank on Yourself, I think made us more ready to start Profit First too. Your order might be different, but for us, it's how it went. And then over the next few years, it just started to snowball in a really good way and ultimately helped us sell our business.
Yeah, I think those things, again, thinking about the mindset, having that time to think was really important. For Eliza, this meant 3 major shifts. First, she implemented what we call strategic elimination. Instead of asking, how can I do everything on my plate more efficiently? She asked a more powerful question. What's on my plate that doesn't need to be done at all? Eliza realized she was producing detailed weekly reports that clients rarely read, attending internal meetings that could be handled through asynchronous updates, and personally managing client projects that her team was fully capable of handling. By eliminating these tasks entirely, she immediately reclaimed 5 hours per week without any negative impact on her business at all.
Okay, so that's the first thing. Eliza did strategic elimination of some of the energy neutrals and some of the energy vampires. The second shift was aligned delegation. Most entrepreneurs try to delegate tasks they dislike or aren't good at, some of those energy vampires, but this is backwards. The key is to delegate based on your unique value to the business. We identified the 20% of activities that Eliza delivered unique, exceptional value that no one else can match, her unique ability zone. And everything outside that zone became a candidate for delegation, even tasks she enjoyed or excelled at. Some energy creators were actually things she also needed to delegate. This wasn't easy. Eliza loves some of the creative aspects of client work and was reluctant to hand them off, but she came to realize that her highest value to the business wasn't in production. It's about client strategy and business development, where she got way more energy from, because even energy creators, there's some that create more energy and less energy, right? So by delegating 80% of her previous responsibilities and focusing almost exclusively on her unique ability zone, something remarkable happened. Revenue actually increased by 22% over the next 6 months, while her working hours dropped.
Now, the third shift that was implemented is what I call rhythmic renewal. Eliza, like most entrepreneurs, had been operating in perpetual sprint mode, working flat out until exhaustion forced her to crash, then getting up and doing it all again. But she had no running capability, right? She replaced this with a sustainable rhythm that included a strict no work policy after 5 p.m. and on weekends. She had quarterly 2-day retreats for strategic thinking and planning, a daily 30-minute energy renewal break in the mid-afternoon, her previous low energy point, monthly innovative plays where she stepped away from operations to think creatively about the business, right? And this wasn't about working less. though her hours did decrease significantly. It was about working in harmony with her natural energy cycles rather than against them.
Yeah, so 6 months after implementing these 3 shifts, Eliza's business had grown to 1.1 million in annual revenue. More importantly, she was working 42 hours a week instead of 80. She hadn't missed a single one of her daughter's soccer games, and the panic attacks that had once been routine had disappeared entirely. For the first time, she told me, I feel like my business is working for me, not the other way around. This is what sustainable scaling looks like. It's not about grinding yourself in the pursuit of a number. It's about building a business that grows without consuming your health, your relationships, and your joy in the process.
For Eliza, this meant 3 major shifts. First, she implemented what we call strategic elimination. Instead of asking, how can I do everything on my plate more efficiently? She asked a more powerful question. What's on my plate that doesn't need to be done at all? Eliza realized she was producing detailed weekly reports that clients rarely read, attending internal meetings that could be handled through asynchronous updates, and personally managing client projects that her team was fully capable of handling. By eliminating these tasks entirely, she immediately reclaimed 5 hours per week without any negative impact on her business at all.
Okay, so that's the first thing. Eliza did strategic elimination of some of the energy neutrals and some of the energy vampires. The second shift was aligned delegation. Most entrepreneurs try to delegate tasks they dislike or aren't good at, some of those energy vampires, but this is backwards. The key is to delegate based on your unique value to the business. We identified the 20% of activities that Eliza delivered unique, exceptional value that no one else can match, her unique ability zone. And everything outside that zone became a candidate for delegation, even tasks she enjoyed or excelled at. Some energy creators were actually things she also needed to delegate. This wasn't easy. Eliza loves some of the creative aspects of client work and was reluctant to hand them off, but she came to realize that her highest value to the business wasn't in production. It's about client strategy and business development, where she got way more energy from, because even energy creators, there's some that create more energy and less energy, right? So by delegating 80% of her previous responsibilities and focusing almost exclusively on her unique ability zone, something remarkable happened. Revenue actually increased by 22% over the next 6 months, while her working hours dropped.
Now, the third shift that was implemented is what I call rhythmic renewal. Eliza, like most entrepreneurs, had been operating in perpetual sprint mode, working flat out until exhaustion forced her to crash, then getting up and doing it all again. But she had no running capability, right? She replaced this with a sustainable rhythm that included a strict no work policy after 5 p.m. and on weekends. She had quarterly 2-day retreats for strategic thinking and planning, a daily 30-minute energy renewal break in the mid-afternoon, her previous low energy point, monthly innovative plays where she stepped away from operations to think creatively about the business, right? And this wasn't about working less, though her hours did decrease significantly. It was about working in harmony with her natural energy cycles rather than against them.
Yeah, so 6 months after implementing these 3 shifts, Eliza's business had grown to 1.1 million in annual revenue. More importantly, she was working 42 hours a week instead of 80. She hadn't missed a single one of her daughter's soccer games, and the panic attacks that had once been routine had disappeared entirely. For the first time, she told me, I feel like my business is working for me, not the other way around. This is what sustainable scaling looks like. It's not about grinding yourself in the pursuit of a number. It's about building a business that grows without consuming your health, your relationships, and your joy in the process. What does that mean? Well, this is where we address a painful truth. Many 7-figure business owners have built companies that enrich everyone but themselves. They pay competitive salaries to their team. They deliver great value to their clients. They treat their own compensation, though, as an afterthought.
Yep.
Whatever happens to be left over when everyone else is paid.
And then they reinvest everything over and over and over again and say it'll happen eventually. Sam was the lowest paid member of his leadership team on a per hour basis. His personal financial security was actually decreasing as the business grew, creating subconscious resistance to further scaling. His company redesigned his personal compensation structure based on 3 core principles.
So I don't want you to miss this. Because Sam was focused on everyone else and maybe like hoping I'll sell the business one day, right? And maybe make some money then, hoping a dream and a prayer, right? Which had like lots of businesses that try to sell don't, right? It's very small, less than half. I think it's like a third.
Yeah.
Businesses, maybe even less. So then as the business grew, his personal financial security actually decreased. He was getting less and less financially secure, wishing, counting more and more on that hope, dream, and prayer that one day the business would sell. So here's what we did. First, we put his owner compensation first. Sam would now receive a substantial base salary competitive with what he would earn as an executive in someone else's company, paid before other expenses. Second, we put profit actually even before owner's compensation. Instead of hoping for leftover profit at year end, the profit would automatically be distributed to Sam quarterly. This wasn't a bonus or a dividend. It was a structural commitment to his financial prosperity, his reward for all the risk he was taking in his business. And then third, we helped him then start to create wealth beyond his income. We created a systematic process for the business to fund Sam's long-term investments and wealth building vehicles every single month, regardless of cash flow fluctuations.
And this wasn't about greed or taking value from others. It was about creating alignment between the business success and its founder's well-being. When Sam's financial security was guaranteed by design rather than by accident, something unexpected happened. He became more generous, more strategic, and more committed to the company's long-term success. So the company grew.
Yeah, because now when the company grew, his well-being and wealth grew too. And within 10 months of implementing the 3 sides of the triangle here and implementing these ways that he would make sure he was paid accurately and on time and everything, Sam's business had dramatically transformed. Revenue had grown modestly to 2.1 million, but profit had more than tripled. His team was more autonomous and effective than ever before, reporting way more satisfaction in their jobs during their performance reviews. And most importantly, his personal income had increased by 127%, while his working hours had decreased by 40%.
For the first time, he told me, I feel like my business is working for me instead of the other way around. We're more focused, more profitable, and happier than we've ever been. You might already be thinking, but me and my business are different. It's not going to happen with me.